The NRPE is a partnership of independent faiths across a broad religious spectrum that includes the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the National Council of Churches USA, the Coalition on the Environment and Jewish Life, and the Evangelical Environmental Network. We're guided by our understanding of biblical teaching about caring for the earth. The partnership, as we often call it, seeks to encourage all people of faith to weave their values concerning God's creation throughout the entire fabric of their religious life, including their liturgy, worship, and prayer, through theological study and education, by being good stewards of our homes, land, and resources, by protecting the lives and health of our children in our communities, through social ministry to the poor and vulnerable who have first and preferential claim on our collective conscience, and by using our moral values to effect social justice for all when working with public policymakers. We worship and obey our loving God by serving His creation in neighborly love and in the assurance of God's covenant that states in Genesis 9:12, "Between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations." We believe there are 4 R's of authentic, religiously rooted civil action that focus on good stewardship and loving care for all of God's creation. The first R is for reclaiming the call to care for the environment, thoughtfully, actively, ethically, and with moral stewardship of it. The call didn't begin in the 20th century or even in the 19th. Rather, its charge was given to humankind by God throughout human history. While we may not have acted on it fully or faithfully at all times or in all places, that charge has been ours, and we must now, as faithful people, reclaim it. The second R is for repenting, or acknowledging that individually and collectively, both today and throughout history, we have not lived up to the charge given to us by God to care for the earth and all that dwell here. Restoring is the third R. Good stewardship of God's creation will restore balance and perspective to religious life throughout our distinct traditions. And the final R stands for revitalizing. Active care, active stewardship, and active concern for the vulnerable can help revitalize religious life among individuals and communities. In support of the partnership's unwavering commitment to its mission, we're focusing on deepening and enlivening the theological basis for caring for God's creation. We're developing new leaders, both among young, religiously committed individuals and among current leaders within the religious community. We're broadening our communication capacity and reach, and we're elevating the interlocked issues of human well-being, climate change, and renewable energy resources. The partnership has been and continues to be blessed with many gifts and resources. However, we will need to see a sizable increase in financial support in order to truly unlock the potential we know exists within our communities. That means raising the total amount of support for these efforts from a little over $1 million a year to several $1 million a year over just the next few years. The partnership is successful primarily because of our relationships with interreligious organizations. The NRPE works within and among various religious institutions across our partners' communities. These affiliations afford us a range of entry points into our communities. Our partners work with clergy and lay leaders, on religious campuses and universities, with domestic and international service agencies, with seminaries and other schools of theology, with individual congregations, and even with judicatory bodies. There are 4 keys to our partnership success. First, we remain completely rooted in each of our 4 partners' fundamental religious teachings and deepest convictions. Next, we represent and connect with a tremendously broad range of communities and individuals within the great arc of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Third, we walk together separately. This concept embodies our working approach to collaboration and coordination, while also maintaining and respecting the autonomy, identity, and beliefs of our partners. Last, we have incredible senior leadership at the board level that comes from within our partner communities, which is what makes the partnership a true servant to its partner communities. The partnership uses output metrics to evaluate our success, such as the inclusion of environmental stewardship and eco-justice programs and activities within the daily life and expression of religious communities and traditions. We measure the number of congregations actively caring for the environment and for their neighbors, as well as the number of additional religious organizations and institutions that incorporate concern for the environment and love for their neighbors into their programming or mission. NRPE looks at the expanding body of religious thought, writing, teaching, art, and music related to stewardship and justice, and track the increased concern among religious individuals for the environment as seen in polls or surveys. Many people don't know that the NRPE is one of the oldest and most successful religious-rooted environmental groups in existence. We formally began in 1993 as a nonprofit organization after developing our vision and mission together beginning in 1991. Another little-known fact about NRPE is that we occasionally work with secular organizations, like environmental groups. Of course, our concerns and the action we take concerning the environment stem from our religious beliefs. However, we have found that partnering with other organizations that share our common environmental interests can be more effective than working alone. The partnership's greatest individual or collective accomplishments include our What Would Jesus Drive program in the Evangelical Climate Initiative by the Evangelical Environmental Network, our God's Climate Embraces Us All doctrinal statement endorsed by religious leaders from all 4 of the partner communities, as well as the NOAA Alliance program that exists to protect endangered species. The NRPE was one of the first organizations to advocate for resources to be dedicated to protecting populations abroad and in the U.S. who were impacted by climate change. And most recently, we successfully obtained support of a final rule by the Environmental Protection Agency that lowers the allowable emissions of mercury and other harmful pollutants by power plants. This one change will significantly protect families, communities, nursing mothers, and newborn and unborn babies. Many people assume that we are the environmental movement at Prayer rather than a religious community faithfully fulfilling our own understanding of God's call to protect the environment. Others wonder if we're a group that wants to turn people into earth worshipers, which we're not. We've always aimed to secure resources that will allow our religious partners to fully engage their communities and realize their full potential in advocating for justice for the most vulnerable. Additional resources would allow the NRPE to marry its means with its visionary and strategic ambitions and aspirations. Through its partners, the NRPE would increase leadership development among clergy and lay leaders. We'd invest in expanding and deepening theological exploration around the issues of creation care and justice. We'd also initiate an innovative national stewardship service program for young religiously committed adults. More funds would allow us to accelerate our adoption of renewable energy programs. And we'd like to broaden and solidify partnerships with a wide array of religious organizations and institutions that make up the religious landscape in the United States. One gap that NRPE would like to fill is to develop young, environmentally aware leaders. This has been a priority not just to the partnership, but also the broader religious community concerned about justice and the environment. The partnership has an ambitious vision supported by a multifaceted plan to identify, support, and develop a new generation of young, religiously committed leaders across the spectrum of our 4 partners. We'd also like to invest in developing new leaders. The religious landscape in America is vast, varied, and bountiful. We would like to tap into this new market for us, which includes all of the people who are already leading religious organizations, institutions, or communities. The engagement of these existing leaders could prove profoundly important in helping us fulfill our vision. One final gap we'd like to fill is developing our media outreach. With more funds, we'd invest in marketing and educating others through the use of media, traditional as well as new and social media. Developing and fully supporting creative and artistic religious mediums largely remains an unexplored horizon for the partnership.